The first images have now revealed the shocking scale of destruction on America's biggest warship. America's $13 billion flagship carrier has been reduced to a maze of charred rooms and collapsed ceilings. US sailors fought the blaze for nearly 30 exhausting hours trying to extinguish the flames, yet the new footage raises questions over whether they truly managed to save the USS Ford at all. American media has now embarrassed the Trump administration by airing exclusive footage from inside the USS Ford. The USS Ford was nearly reduced to ashes right as Trump rushes headlong into Iran War 2.0. And after the disaster aboard the USS Ford, Iran is now being accused of damaging yet another American warship. CNN has obtained new video from inside the USS Gerald R Ford, showing in stark detail the damage caused by a major fire on board the carrier. The blaze erupted in March, at a time when the carrier was deployed in support of US operations against Iran, turning a frontline asset into its own emergency. The US Navy initially claimed the fire started in a laundry room and then spread to other parts of the ship, presenting it as a contained incident caused by an internal mishap. Iran, meanwhile, quickly seized on the event and the carrier's retreat from the combat zone, hailing the fire as a symbolic victory over American power. At the time, Navy spokespeople insisted the blaze had been contained and that the ship remained fully operational, downplaying any long-term impact on the carrier's mission. However, the new video reviewed by CNN shows destroyed berthing spaces and extensive internal damage, challenging the early, more reassuring public narrative. Charred bed frames, collapsed ceilings, and tangled, hanging wires can be seen throughout the footage, revealing just how intense and widespread the blaze really was. One sailor told CNN that, in the worst moments of the fire, he genuinely feared the USS Gerald R Ford could be lost entirely, underscoring how close the crew felt they were to catastrophe. CNN also reported that the carrier's automated fire suppression system failed to activate when the blaze broke out, stripping the crew of a critical line of defense. That failure forced sailors to battle the fire manually with hoses and portable equipment, even as flames spread through compartments deep inside the ship. According to the report, crews spent nearly 30 hours not only extinguishing the fire but also continuously checking for hot spots to prevent the flames from reigniting. The resulting damage left roughly 600 sailors without access to their regular berthing areas, forcing them to be relocated elsewhere on the already crowded carrier. A senior US official admitted to CNN that the Navy's initial public account had downplayed the true extent of the damage, raising concerns about transparency. The same official acknowledged that the fire did temporarily degrade the carrier's combat capabilities, even if those capabilities were later restored. Admiral Darrell Caudle later confirmed that the Ford needed about 2 days before it could resume flight operations, highlighting the operational pause caused by the blaze. Following the incident, the carrier was forced to divert to Greece for temporary repairs, stepping back from frontline duties to address critical damage. CNN further reported repeated sanitation failures aboard the ship during its record-breaking deployment, painting a picture of mounting problems at sea. Video from inside the carrier showed overflowing toilets and unsanitary conditions, adding to the list of challenges sailors were forced to endure. After an exhausting 11-month combat deployment, the USS Gerald R Ford finally returned to Virginia, its crew carrying scars from both combat and the onboard disaster. Officials told CNN that the carrier could require up to a year of repairs before it is ready to sail again, meaning America's most expensive warship may be sidelined for a long time. Donald Trump reportedly told senior aides he would end the ceasefire only if Iran was responsible for killing US troops. Trump privately indicated that the death of US personnel could trigger a return to direct military action. The position suggested he was prepared to tolerate limited clashes rather than risk a broader regional escalation. The latest tensions followed some of the most intense exchanges of fire since the truce first took effect. US officials told the Wall Street Journal that repeated Iranian attacks had significantly increased pressure on Trump. Officials also warned the attacks had raised fresh concerns about the long-term survival of the ceasefire. The Wall Street Journal reported that Trump continued to believe an agreement with Tehran remained achievable despite tensions. However, the report said Trump showed little urgency to finalize a comprehensive agreement with Tehran. Trump told the Wall Street Journal it remained possible the US blockade of Iran could continue until Labor Day. The administration was reportedly working on a 60-day framework to guide future negotiations with Iran. The Wall Street Journal said Trump rejected Iran's latest offer and demanded additional concessions from Tehran. He reportedly insisted Iran must make significant concessions before receiving any sanctions relief. Iran maintained that nuclear negotiations could advance only after meaningful financial relief was provided. Tehran continued to seek access to frozen assets as part of any future understanding with Washington.
This is, as you probably have been watching, so from 1922 to present, it really never worked because we took a strong action for a different reason. So they were reciprocating. Yep.
Mr. President, can you explain why
the negotiation itself has gone very well, actually. Very well.
Mr. President,
It could happen. I mean, if it happens, and it might not happen, you know, who knows? But if it happens, it could happen like over the weekend. But as it stands now, we will go in sometime in the not too distant future. It's very safe down there. You know, we have, with Space Force, we have cameras. Every angle of those 3 sites are being watched at all times. If anybody went there, we'll see exactly what's happening, and we'll blow it up a little bit further. But as far as getting it is the B-2 bombers did a job like nobody's ever seen. In the night, with no moon, dead darkness, at 1 o'clock in the morning or so, they dropped those bombs, the biggest, just about as big a bomb as you can ever find, and it went down air chutes. It was hard to believe that they can do the technology. It followed a beam right into the air chutes, right, exploded. Very hard to get that material. But I still nevertheless want it. And I don't want to do it if we're in conflict. I don't want to put men in that kind of danger. I remember Jimmy Carter had some bad problems in Iran with the hostages. I don't want to ever put our people in that kind of danger. But when it's over, as of this moment, it's agreed that we will go in with them. We will get it and we will destroy it. It will be destroyed.
The Iranian Navy says that on June 3rd it targeted the command and control systems aboard a U.S. destroyer, striking at what it describes as the ship's brain in Gulf waters. Tehran insists the strike was a direct response to what it calls aggressive U.S. measures against Iranian commercial shipping, accusing Washington of harassment at sea. This development was announced in an official statement issued by Iran's Army Public Relations Office, giving the claim the stamp of formal military approval. According to that statement, the U.S. destroyer was attempting to enter Iranian waters, a move Tehran frames as a clear violation of its sovereignty and red lines. However, U.S. Central Command has flatly denied Iran's account, rejecting the claim that any U.S. Navy destroyer was hit or successfully targeted. CENTCOM went so far as to say Iran is lying, insisting that American assets at sea are operating freely and without damage despite Tehran statements. Iran's statement said, and I quote, "A few hours ago, following aggressive actions, violations of the regulations governing the Strait of Hormuz, and hostile acts against Iranian commercial vessels in the Sea of Oman, by the terrorist and aggressive U.S. military, the Navy, immediately upon detecting and identifying the source of those actions, targeted the command and control center responsible for them." End quote. Meanwhile, eyewitnesses inside Iran reported hearing the sounds of explosions and active air defenses, according to Iran International, suggesting something significant was unfolding in the skies. Residents in eastern Tehran described the distinct thud of air defense fire and then a single, loud explosion around 8:45 p.m., sending people rushing to their windows and balconies. Similar air defense sounds were reported from Karaj and Urmia, while blasts were heard near Bojnord Airport, pointing to a wider pattern of aerial activity across multiple Iranian cities. Iran stressed that its navy is closely monitoring what it calls a criminal and aggressive enemy presence, keeping constant watch on U.S. movements in the region. The statement warns that the Navy will respond to any hostile act in the shortest possible time, signaling readiness for rapid retaliation if it feels provoked. Tehran further vowed that its forces will exact revenge in the harshest manner for the blood of the sailors of the destroyer Dina, framing its actions as avenging fallen martyrs. This latest claimed attack comes after both Tehran and Washington exchanged fire under the shadow of a fragile ceasefire, raising fears that the truce is rapidly unraveling in the Gulf. At least one person has been killed in the devastating aftermath of Iran's deadly strikes on Kuwait. Kuwaiti authorities also alleged that multiple people sustained injuries following Iran's drone attacks. With the international airport suffering significant damage, Kuwait has suspended all commercial flight operations. Airport operations in Kuwait are reportedly expected to remain halted until further notice from authorities. The airport had only reopened for normal operations on June 1st before the strikes took place. Kuwait's Ministry of Defense confirmed that Iran launched multiple hostile drones during its June 3rd attack. According to Kuwait's Ministry of Defense, Iran fired 13 ballistic missiles and 17 drones during the assault. Gulf allies have now come out strongly against Iran following attacks on Bahrain and Kuwait. The Gulf Cooperation Council released a statement on June 3 condemning what it called ongoing aggression. The GCC reportedly accused Iran of carrying out cowardly attacks against civilians in Bahrain and Kuwait. GCC Secretary-General Jassim Mohammed al-Budaiwi also accused Iran of hostile actions against Gulf nations. The statement further alleged that Iran's attacks amounted to violations of international law and accepted norms. Al-Budaiwi also urged the international community to take a firm stand and end Iran's aggression. The Gulf Council Secretary-General said, and I quote, "The attacks reflect the Iranian regime's insistence on pursuing rejected hostile policies targeting the security, stability, and sovereignty of the member states. Iran is in violation of international law, the United Nations Charter and all international norms, stressing that this requires a firm international stance to put an end to these dangerous Iranian aggressive practices. We underscored that the security of the Kingdom of Bahrain and the State of Kuwait is an integral part of the security of the GCC states, and that the Cooperation Council states stand united in confronting these attacks and fully support all measures and procedures taken by the two countries to defend their security, sovereignty, and territorial integrity." End quote. On June 3rd, the United States and Iran exchanged missile strikes across the region despite a fragile ceasefire. American bases in Kuwait and Bahrain came under fire following U.S. self-defense strikes against Iran. Press TV's report said, and I quote, "Iran's IRGC announced that it struck a U.S. military airbase and the U.S. Fifth Fleet's headquarters with missiles and drones in retaliation for American attacks. The IRGC said a U.S. warplane first hit an Iranian tanker near the Strait of Hormuz late last night, causing engine room damage. In response, the IRGC targeted a U.S.-affiliated vessel named Panaya with naval missiles. After a subsequent U.S. strike on an IRGC telecom tower on Keshem Island, the IRGC Aerospace Force attacked a U.S. air and helicopter base in a regional country as well as the Fifth Fleet's command center. The IRGC warned that any violation of security in the Strait of Hormuz would bring a harsh price for the U.S. military, unquote. Iran has reportedly stopped communicating with mediators regarding a possible extension of the ceasefire. However, U.S. President Donald Trump rejected those claims and insisted that talks with Iran remain ongoing.